Welcome back everyone to Genshin Interact. Today we'll be discussing the upcoming characters and weapons on the first half of the 3.7 banners, and whether or not they are a good pulling option for you.
If you do enjoy the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe and check out the rest of the channel for other videos you may be interested in.
Now, onto the video. The first character we're going to be looking at is Yae Miko, and fitting that kind of off-field DPS, ascending into crit rate, allowing you to kind of focus on crit damage, attack percent, and other things in other parts of her kit. She really helps to get this idea of with her skills off-field, as well as doing a lot of damage. But Riff, what can you tell us about her skill, burst, and some passives that are going to help her off-field?
Yeah, well, just like you were saying with her playstyle being off-field, her skill's basically going to leave behind what are called Seisho Sakuras, and she can leave behind a maximum of 3 of these. And these are going to strike nearby opponents periodically, much like Fischl's Oz. You can think of her as an upgrade to Fischl, basically. And her burst is going to send down a large AoE bolt of lightning on her enemies. And if she has these skills, these Seisho Sakuras out on the field, the burst will destroy these, and they will turn into more Tenko Thunderbolts that deal a massive amount of damage. So you're getting a maximum of about 4 hits. 1, her burst, and if you have all 3 skills out, you see another 3 hits down on the field. Moving on to her passives, her first passive says that her burst will reset the cooldown for one of her skill charges. This means you can throw out a skill right after the burst, even if you used up all the skills before the burst. And her second passive states that every point of elemental mastery Yae Miko possesses will increase her skill damage by 0.15%. And since Yae Miko is usually put on reaction teams, this passive makes her even more viable to do more damage off field. Specifically, this will allow you to build more elemental mastery on Yae Miko. If you want to use her in a lot of Dendro teams, that's going to be really great for her since Dendro teams really like EM. But moving on to some character comparisons, Vixen, what can you tell us about Yae Miko's kit that can be similar to other characters?
Well, just like you were talking about with her skills, and very similar to kind of, in a sense, her burst, it's very similar to how Fischl plays. And we talked about that a second ago with how her Oz and the skills that Yae Miko does with those Seisho Sakuras off-field are very similar to Fischl's Oz off-field. You know, they're both going to be doing a lot of damage with their skills off-field, obviously, and they're going to be great support for reaction teams, as well as specifically in these instances, because of the huge increase of Dendro characters and all the damage that comes with it, and a lot more fun that they can bring. These 2 characters are going to be great for Dendro teams. Besides Yae Miko, the other side of the banner we're going to be looking at is Yoimiya. You know, looking at her kit, she's going to be that DPS that may be on-field, obviously, most of the time. She's going to be using her skills in a burst to really get as much damage out as possible, as well as getting her normal attacks going. And she ascends into crit rate, much like Yae Miko. So both of these characters, you can focus on other stats that can help you besides the crit rate to kind of focus on getting some other things and damage even higher without having to always focus on critting. And once again, Riff, what can you tell us about Yoimiya's on-field capabilities?
So Yoimiya, as a main DPS, of course she wants to be on field a lot and she's very selfish with her damage. Charging up her bow shot as a bow character, she has actually 2 different levels of charge she can do. The first level is a typical normal pyro arrow charge shot like any other pyro charged bow user will do. But her level 2 charge shot will generate a maximum of 3 kindling arrows and will hone in on a target nearby once fired. Her skill will turn her normal attacks into blazing arrows, doing increased pyro damage, and this is where she gets her infusion, and this is where we're going to talk about is the main part of her kit. This skill increases normal attack damage and adds that pyro infusion to her normal attacks, which will allow her to fire off a crazy amount of arrows with increased damage. Her burst rains down pyro in an AoE radius to her unsuspecting enemies and marks opponents with this thing called the Aris Blaze. And basically the way this Aris Blaze works is it will deal AoE pyro damage when other characters on your team attack the enemy that's marked with it. Also, whenever an enemy is defeated that is marked by an Aris Blaze, it will move on to another nearby enemy and inherit its remaining duration, which is base duration is 10 seconds. So any normal charge, plunging attacks, elemental skills, and bursts, basically any other type of damage other party members deal will cause this Aris Blaze to explode and do what it does. This allows Yoimiya to be a DPS while allowing some extra damage to come from other party members and keep the rotation fluid when Yoimiya is on downtime. But moving on to Yoimiya's passive talents, Vixen, what can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, her first passive is going to be during her skill, shots that are fired from Yoimiya's normal attack will increase her pyro damage bonus by 2% every hit she does. and this effect can last for 3 seconds and has a maximum of 10 stacks, which means that she can get a 20% pyro damage bonus from just doing 10 normal attacks when she does attacks by her skill on top of something. This is going to allow her to do a lot more damage in the long run, as well as helping a lot more pyro to be out on field and do a lot more damage. Her second passive is called Summer Night's Dawn. Basically, when you're using your burst, it'll cause nearby party members, obviously not including Yoimiya, to gain a 10% attack increase for 15 seconds. Now, during this duration, a further attack bonus will be added on based on the number of the previous talent's stacks that Yoimiya possesses when she uses her burst, and each stack will increase the attack bonus by 1% from the previous. So the 10% attack bonus you get in the beginning after using her burst with this passive, and the last passive adding on up to another 10% attack bonus on top of it. Since Yoimiya has a specific but simple build, she doesn't really have too many similar characters, and that's maybe the issue with looking at maybe some other characters that are similar to her. But if you are looking to pull Yoimiya and want to know who else could fit that role that you have or want to go and head for instead, Hu Tao, Diluc, and Yanfei all fit the bill for what Yoimiya can really get done, but there are some things to worry about later that we'll kind of talk about in the questions at the end of the video. Rift, can you tell us next what's going to be on this weapon banner with Kagura's Verity and Thundering Pulse?
So now, moving on to the weapon banner, first we'll be looking at Kagura's Verity, which has a main stat of crit damage at 66.2% when it's max level 90. The ability on this weapon basically says that you'll gain the Kagura Dance effect when using an elemental skill, and what this effect does is it will increase your elemental skill damage by 12% for 16 seconds for a maximum of 3 stacks. An extra 12% all elemental damage bonus will be given when the character has a max 3 stacks on them. And so this is really good, obviously, for Yae Miko because she uses her skill 3 times in quick succession to get the max stacks right off the bat and get that elemental damage bonus as well. But there are a few other characters that we can think about that this will also be good for, since there are some other Catalyst users that do rely on their skill. And namely, we think of Nahida. And the reason this can be good on Nahida, if you're building Nahida for a little bit more of a damage role as well as a support role, I do build my own Nahida kind of half support, half damage, so sitting around 400 to 500 elemental mastery instead of like all the way to 1,000, but she has a good crit ratio on top of that. And so I know a lot of people like to do that, and Kagura's Verity can really help out with building her this way, giving her the crit damage there. But also, we know that Nahida has a low skill cooldown of only 5 seconds, and she can get a nice bit of elemental skill damage from this weapon. We also see Wanderer and Hazo, other Animo DPSs, getting use out of this weapon, namely for the high base attack and the crit damage that it will provide, but also these characters both use their skills as well and can get a little bit extra damage from the passive. One last character we also like to look at is Lisa. And yes, she's just a 4-star, and throwing Kagura's Verity might be a little bit overkill. Like, don't pull Kagura's Verity just to throw on Lisa, because there are going to be other 4-star options, something like Sacrificial Fragments for the EM, or Wid Sith, you name it. But this does work for her, namely because of the 3 stacks of using your skill to gain an elemental damage bonus, and because Lisa does use her skill 3 times in a row to charge up her hold skill, this can work for her as well, especially if you want to use her in a damage role in an aggravate team. But moving on to the next weapon, we see Thundering Pulse. Vixen, what can you tell me about that weapon?
This weapon has a main stat of crit damage, and at level 90 you can get 66.2% crit damage. The ability on this weapon increases attack by 20% flat and gives the Thunder Emblem effect. The Thunder Emblem effect has 3 different stack levels to it. Each normal attack that you do will get its damage increased by 12% at 1 stack, 24% on the 2nd stack, and 40% on the 3rd stack. A stack will be gained by either 3 different ways. Either a normal attack damaging an opponent, an elemental skill being cast, and energy that is less than 100%. What this means is that with Yoimiya, you're going to be constantly wanting her to be less than 100%, basically not having her burst ready, so that you can get these max 3 stack, popping her skill, doing a normal attack, and making sure you don't have your burst, to make sure you can get up to 40% more damage out on her normal attacks that she's going to be doing, which is the main part of her kit. Alongside of this, we don't really talk about artifact sets too much, but for here and specifically this weapon, you might want to think about throwing 4-piece Shimenawa's Reminiscence on the character that is going to be using this. And the reason why is because after using your skill, it'll take 15 energy away from you, and that's going to help you specifically with this weapon, getting you under that threshold of using your burst, and making sure you try to stay away from it as much as possible. The best characters to use for this are obviously Yoimiya, since it is her weapon, and obviously everything just around her that helps, and another character that could help is Child. This weapon just obviously helps him in so many different ways. Obviously, he's going to be using his burst and then probably his skill and normal attack right after, making sure that he gets those 3 stacks as well. Obviously, his skill and then his normal attack, and then not having his burst ready gives him the 3rd stack. Both of these characters work really well in this weapon. This weapon is once again not a must-pull, considering that Yoimiya has some 4-star options here and there, and Child has some 5-star, 4-star options that could be better than this weapon as well. Looking beyond the banners themselves of what we see with the characters and the weapons, we want to talk about some pulling options and some questions we bring about. So the first question, maybe you can help me along with this rift, is do you need an off-field or on-field DPS character on your account? How can Yoimiya and Yae Miko kind of help with that?
Right, so basically Yae Miko, we know she's really good for Dendro teams, but also there's some other teams before Dendro released that she was really good for. She was also known for being really good with Raiden. They were kind of a dynamic duo and still are very powerful. She also, Yae Miko, is a great substitute, an upgrade for where you would normally place Fischl. So that is something to think about. Also, having both Yae Miko and Fischl built is not necessarily a bad idea, especially for Abyss settings where you want to have 2 separate teams where you have similar characters. Something kind of like Yelan and Xingqiu, where not having Yelan isn't bad, but also having her isn't bad either, because having both characters of a similar role allows you to be flexible. So in the end, Yae Miko isn't necessary, but she's a very good character to have once you get to later stages of the game. And then looking at Yoimiya, she's been stuck kind of between a lot of anticipated banners, so she hasn't had much good luck. She's been kind of done dirty by MiHoYo, but she is a good unit, especially when teamed with someone like Yunjin, who increases normal attack damage. Although she is great and fun, characters like Diluc, Hu Tao, and even Yanfei are good substitutes to use instead of Yoimiya, but they all have different playstyles and abilities, so this all revolves around how you want to play the game and who you ultimately want to pull for and who you like. So this moves into our next question, Vixen. What elements is the player's account in need of? Do you need more Electro, in Yae Miko's case, and or supports? Do you need a solid Pyro DPS? If Diluc and Yanfei, even if you have them, aren't really cutting it and you want to pull for Yoimiya?
Well, Yae Miko can be a great off-field character to do lots of damage while off-field with her skills. This allows her to be paired with an on-field DPS character for reactions or just more damage in Raiden's case. She's an upgrade in our opinion to Fischl, but Fischl is an amazing 4-star that is perfectly fine to use, especially with a lot of her constellations. Yoimiya can be that great on-field character you may be in need of. Diluc and Yanfei usually fall under Yoimiya in terms of strength and balance for an account, which may make you lean to pulling for Yoimiya. But if you have, by the way, a character like Hu Tao, Yoimiya is more like a veteran's choice rather than a necessity for an account, considering that Hu Tao really does fall under such a huge umbrella of abilities, and she can really go into a lot of different things, and in my opinion, she is probably the best Pyro DPS we have right now, just because of her vaporized teams that she has, as well as just the amount of damage that she can output with her ascensions and everything she has. She's probably going to be a better character to look at in the end of the day. Now looking into maybe how your resources are lined up to look and actually get these characters so you can get them up to 80, 90, or whatever as soon as possible. The next question we have is, do you have the resources to properly invest into the character you pull? Rift, what can you say about that?
Yeah, so Yae Miko and Yoimiya are both Inazuman characters, and this is important because Inazuma is locked by story quests. So you need to make sure you know that it'll take some time grinding if you aren't in Inazuma yet to get the materials you need to upgrade your Yae Miko and or Yoimiya. So if you're still in Mondstadt, just know that it's going to take several hours at least of gameplay just to get into Inazuma. And yes, you can join friends' worlds to gain the materials that you need, but just for you people out there who do play solo, that is something to think about. Just know that you need to get to Inazuma to get those materials. But moving on, we look at what kinds of teams are you, the player, trying to build, and how can you enlighten us on that, Vixen?
Well, Yae Miko is a very versatile character since she fits a supportive role with her own damage. You know, she's going to be helping people off-field, as well as being that support role and fitting into a lot of different teams, helping a lot of different DPSs. Yoimiya is really best for vaporized teams, although she can be used in a few other teams like Melt or Burning, but vaporized with characters like Yelan, Xingqiu, and Yunjin will be better for her in the end. The next question we look at is looking at you, the player's account, what roles do you or do you not have filled? And Rift, what can you help us in some other questions that may help enlighten the player in this instance?
Right, so when thinking about this question, there's a few other questions we need to think about. And one of those is, do you need supportive damage if your current damage dealers aren't really cutting it? So characters like Yelan, Nahida, Yae Miko on this banner as a great sub DPS and support for other characters like Raiden, Hu Tao, you name it. This is important to think about because if you can't seem to get enough damage in the Abyss or whatever, characters like Yae Miko in this instance are good to fill that role for you and can get you past where you're struggling with. And then another question to think about is, do you have a Pyro DPS capable of carrying the team? And obviously this is talking about Yoimiya. If you have Diluc already and you've built him, if he's capable of carrying your team, you are probably okay. You can save your Prima Gems or look at pulling for Yae Miko. And we also know Kazu's coming up, very valuable character. So that's something to think about. If you already have Hu Tao, same thing there. So just know that Yoimiya is the carry of the team. So if you don't have that role filled, she becomes that much more valuable to your account. But we're going to move on to our next section, which kind of just really weighs the dangers between free-to-play players all the way to people who spend lots of money on the game. And we're going to look at the perspectives between those types of players. And so, Vixen, what can you tell us about free-to-play players?
The free-to-play players need characters that slot in really a plethora of teams and can make the game easier before the late-game content really kicks in, which might be where both these characters fit. But neither of these characters are necessary, in our opinion, for an account, especially early game people. Fischl can be used instead of Yae Miko, and Yanfei or Diluc are good substitutes for Yoimiya. Also, if you are really looking into a good Pyro DPS, we really want to say that Hu Tao will probably be better than Yoimiya in the end anyways, even better than Diluc and Yanfei. Veteran players, you guys already have a decent lineup at this point for probably even 1 to 2 teams for an Abyss, and even if you have the substitutes for Yae Miko and Yoimiya, talking about Hu Tao, Diluc, Yanfei, or Fischl, you might want to have maybe a few more teams for this Spyro Abyss, or maybe you just want more to work with when challenging domains and bosses. And in this case, both Yae Miko and Yoimiya are totally worth it and can be a lot of fun for an account. Now looking at high spenders, looking into what constellations will benefit the characters the most. As a general rule, like we talk about, most good constellations, other than the C6 of course, are C1 and C2 for a majority of characters in the game. Yae Miko C2, for instance, is very useful for her to do even more damage off-field with her skills. This constellation increases the level of her Sakuras to level 2 when created and a max of level 4, whereas when created without this constellation, they start at level 1 and go to a max of level 3. Another second constellation steals the show with Yoimiya's Constellation 2. This constellation will give Yoimiya a 25% pyro damage bonus for 6 seconds when a pyro hit crits. Since she ascends into crit rate and she shoots so often and rapidly, her ability to crit with pyro with her skill is that much higher. This allows this constellation to occur even more frequently. Now we're going to be hitting the last question, and Rift, what can you tell us about the weapon banner? Do you need the weapon? Kind of what's going on in that sense.
So it's always important to, if you're pulling a character, you're thinking to yourself, do I need this weapon for the character? And that's a very valid question because it's a lot of Prima Gems to invest in and it may or may not be worth it. So looking at Yae Miko, she has so many good 4-star and other 5-star options instead of Kagura's Verity that her weapon is definitely not needed. It's very good, just not necessary. Weapons like Skyward Atlas, Lost Prayer, Solar Pearl, Wit Sith, and even more 4-stars and other 5-stars. Her weapon does help her extremely. But these Prima Gems are better spent on characters than this weapon. And then looking at Yoimiya, she doesn't really have the arsenal that other characters have in terms of weapons to use, but there are 4-star options that most people should have, and that is Rust. This weapon can be on par with 5 stars, especially with refinements, to be put on Yoimiya. In the long run, her weapon is nice, but again, not necessary since even Slingshot, a 3-star bow, is good on her. We hope that this video could help you decide on whether these characters or weapons coming up on this next banner are for you.
As always, if you have any suggestions that may help with other players, go ahead and let us know in the comments. Thank you again for watching the video, and we'll see you in the next one.